Network's decision to prohibit the General Lee cost John Schneider more than only his TV show. Overnight, the merchandise deals vanished. His royalties ceased to be paid. The wreckage included a personal vehicle valued at $200,000. Still, it wasn't the worst of it. In order to cover his expenses, he sold a signed General Lee hood for $25,000. After that, Amazon began discussing the possibility of canceling the show altogether. A petition that Schneider started garnered 50,000 signatures. However, that was only the beginning of the battle. His remarks on the subject of free speech and hate symbols deeply divided the nation. The peaceful community of Mount Texcoco, located around 45 miles north of Manhattan, was the site of John Richard Schneider's birth on April 8, 1960. Shirley and Jack Schneider were both involved in public service and lived close to their son. His observation of the world was more than that even when he was a small child. In it, he hoped to put on a show. He began doing magic tricks for his neighbors in their backyards after spending $5 on a basic kit from a nearby hobby store when he was 5 years old. Even though it was crude and unfinished, it sparked an emotion in him. He enjoyed the attention he received. I waited for the next trick to work, and then I reacted. Starting with that modest scarf illusion kit, he continued to expand upon it. In 1968, at the age of 8, he made his theatrical debut. He landed the part of a munchkin in a New York City community theater staging of The Wizard of Oz. He put in about 20 hours of rehearsal time each week after school and made $10 for each performance. The money wasn't the most important thing. He felt a part of something more than his own neighborhood as he rehearsed, waited in the wings, and heard the cheers. After that, things changed in a way he had no say over. The age at which John's parents separated was 10. All of a sudden, the house that had seemed solid was fractured, and he was lonely inside. He began to seek solace in indestructible objects, and television became one of those objects. The Western genre captivated him, particularly the 1959 to 1973 Bonanza series. He quietly developed the habit of sitting in front of the television on a weekly basis. He used to pretend to be a cowboy hero in his room, recreating gunfights with a toy revolver. A safe haven and hope for the future were provided to him by those tales. Slowly but surely, the themes of family, adventure, and the expansive West shaped his identity. At the age of 14, in 1974, he had yet another significant modification. The family relocated to Atlanta, Georgia, after his mother's second marriage. Arriving in the South as a child from New York could have felt disoriented. On the other hand, John discovered an open door. Rapidly becoming a member of the school's theater club, he attended North Springs High. He was able to connect his past self with his present self through the theater. He portrayed Danny Zuko in the school's Greek theater production, on par with the character and give it a genuine vibe. To adapt to a new society without sacrificing his identity, he practiced Southern accents. The combination of acting and improvising began to hone his skills. Now he was doing more than only memorizing lines. He was discovering the art of changing identities at will. At 15 years old, he was already pursuing his dream with the zeal of a teenager with a burning desire. He rode his bike to deliver newspapers, saving enough for acting lessons at the neighborhood theater. The classes were not a pastime for him. His persistence paid off. He now has a major role in our community. He was named Best Dramatic Performance by the Georgia District Youth in 1975 for his efforts there. It was as if the award were proof to him. This was more than simply a pleasant dream, it told him. He could pursue it and, perhaps, capture it. Furthermore, he began to focus on music when he was 16 years old. In an Atlanta garage studio, he used a borrowed guitar to record his debut demo. Covers of Hank Williams' songs, such as Lovesick Blues and Hey, Good Looking, were performed by him. Next, he carried the tapes into various radio stations, crossing his fingers that someone would listen. Instead, 12 times he was turned down. People told him he was too young to be a celebrity or that he lacked charisma. Still, he persisted. His persistence paid off when a tiny station, WQXI, ran a clip. Although it was brief, he experienced a profound impact. Even the slightest hint of light was significant after all those closed doors. He realized that as long as the end goal was genuine enough, he could keep going even when the going got tough. Music. Still a teenager in 1977, he reached new heights. He slept on friends' couches and stretched his money with inexpensive diner meals as he drove across the country in a beat-up Ford from Atlanta to Los Angeles for pilot season. His pursuit of entry into the industry was relentless. He was cast in Smokey Icky and the Bandit as an unnamed extra playing a truck stop patron thanks to that push. About 12 hours passed during the shoot, and he was paid $50. Even though it wasn't much, he felt like he was getting his first real paycheck from the world he desired. He experienced firsthand the potentially dangerous nature of the business by being in close proximity to actual sets and actors. Plus, it gave him the impression that he was practically touching it. When he was back in Georgia, he continued to study and perform as if nothing else mattered. In addition to taking vocal lessons and performing local gigs, he created an odd but entertaining performance combining singing and magic. At county fairs, he would simultaneously sing a country song and pluck a rabbit out of a top hat, evoking laughter and applause from audiences of about 200. No, those performances weren't an act. They taught him not to fidget, to feel the time, and to maintain focus. He had a modest Atlanta agency who began booking him by the time he graduated in 1978. Among his 3 television commercial credits are those for Coca-Cola and Georgia Peaches. With $300 from each, he made $900 in total. Adapting his voice to suit the market's demands, he mastered the art of a convincing Southern drawl. On set, he had to be flexible and react fast, even when the script was changed at the last minute. He learned a quietly effective professional talent from that. How to maintain composure, listen attentively, and carry out instructions. Everything was leading up to the pivotal moment. He noticed a trade post for a new show in early 1979, when he was 18 years old, seeking a 25-year-old redneck from Georgia. In reality, John was far from it. Coming from New York, he was younger. So, even before he had the job, he resolved to perform the most important role in his life, music. As if he had spent his entire life in the South, he arrived at the audition sporting a country hat, stubble, chewing tobacco, and a beer can. He sounded just like they wanted him to by putting on a thick accent and telling wild yarns about rural life. He triumphed over 300 other contestants and was cast as Bo Duke on the Dukes of Hazzard because of how well it worked. To further cement his reputation, he falsely stated that he had attended the non-existent Georgia School of High-Performance Driving. He spoke like a man who had always driven hard when the audition topic shifted to automotive, music, abilities. During the practice run, he deftly glided over the hood of a mock-up automobile. That action evolved into the now iconic Duke slide, which saw extensive airtime throughout the program. What started as a falsehood became a signature, and what started as an impulse became history. He inked his first big deal for the show on March 15, 1979, for $5,000 per episode. Knowing that all may fall apart if someone probed deeply enough, he continued to bear the secret of his age and origins. The show continued, though, because the wager paid off. In April 1979, when production began in California, he dove headfirst into the project. He sprained his ankle landing from a fence jump in his first scene. Regardless, he finished the scene and garnered praise from his co-workers for his determination. When 19-year-old John Schneider took the helm of the General Lee for the 1979 season premiere of The Dukes of Hazzard, the crew immediately saw that he was different. A lot of performers were careful when they did stunts. To Schneider, they were nothing more than an obstacle. Days of Shine, the 3rd episode, had him taking a genuine 1969 Dodge Charger, welding its roll cage by hand, and then sending it hurtling down a 15-foot ramp and across a pond. A stunt driver's training was non-existent for him. He relied only on his instincts as he tightly grasped the wheel. The chassis twisted from the car's violent descent, and the crew quickly realized they would require more vehicles than originally anticipated. Jumps destroyed nearly all of the Chargers in certain episodes, causing them to burn through as many as 14. As shown in the opening titles, the iconic jump reached a height of 16 feet, and the vehicle soared 82 feet before being destroyed. While Schneider may have skipped a few difficult jumps, the ones he did execute had an electric energy that put Bo Duke in his element. He began to see the General Lee as more than just a commodity. Offset. He named his orange Charger Little Bo Peep after himself. He drove it up to 140 miles per hour on empty back roads so he could get a feel for it and figure out how to incorporate it into the show. Like a prize, he refurbished a different Charger with a 426 Hemi engine. He kept the car even though an auctioneer offered over $10 million for it, but it was all in good fun. That same automobile was smashed by a tree during Hurricane Ida, years later. He felt like he was losing a piece of himself when he lost it. He devoted many late hours to these machines, welding roll cages and fixing dents. Every scene has its own flair because of their connection. Schneider and Tom Wopat maintained the tempo even after the cameras stopped rolling. They formed a little country band they dubbed the Duke Boys Band during their free time. The two would play guitar back and forth like brothers at cast parties, snorts, pubs, and charity functions. Hazzard Highway was a song they created together in 1980 following a vacation in Georgia. Even though it was never officially released, they continued to play it during reunions for many years. As if transported back in time to Hazzard County, the audience adored witnessing the two of them perform Good Old Boys while smiling and giggling. Even after the credits rolled, their music continued to cement their connection. The set was not always a happy place. An ostensibly armed fan managed to get past security on a night in 1981 while filming episode 45. Schneider tackled him head-on into a hay bale without pausing to ponder. The entire cast and crew stood motionless as Schneider responded lightning fast to the man's arrest. Despite his subsequent jokes about Bo Duke justice, the threat remained. In that split second, nobody realized the gun wasn't real. It served as a stark reminder of the peculiar and perilous nature of fame and is one of the most frightening behind-the-scenes stories. The third season was the show's breakout. Schneider began to receive almost 2,000 letters weekly, a 500% increase from his previous level of fan mail. A number of his admirers had begged him to sketch General Lee, and he did his best to oblige. His pay shot up to $10,000 each episode as soon as CBS noticed the demand. He was able to use the publicity to his advantage a year later in a dispute with Tom Wopat in the studio about merchandising revenue. However, he was given an unexpected opportunity in music by the show before that storm even came. Schneider devoted his days to filming and his nights to daydreaming about music from 1981 onward. After filming a scene in Nashville, he wasted no time getting to a little demo studio to record a song he'd composed called Ain't You Glad? For 10 hours straight, he strung guitar. His voice sounded scratchy from fatigue, yet the take had an authentic quality to it. The demo caught producer Mike Kerb off guard, and the determination in Schneider's voice surprised him. He then extended an opportunity to sign with Scott Brothers Records the next day. On the country charts, Schneider's Now or Never reached number 8 after its publication at the year's conclusion. It demonstrated that he was more than just a famous TV singer. Everything he had was genuine. In 1984, 3 years down the road, he inked a deal with MCA Nashville. He was determined to carve out a niche for himself at this powerhouse label. He recorded Too Good to Stop Now in a single 48-hour session and co-produced certain tracks. A restless night eluded him. Upon completion of his debut track, I'd Been Around Enough to Know, he distributed it to radio stations nationwide. 15 stations declined. He persisted in contacting stations, mailing cassettes, and exploring lesser areas until he was finally given an opportunity by one station in Shreveport. The song quickly rose to the top of the country charts, where it remained for 2 weeks. By the time the record hit 500,000 copies sold, he had truly become a multi-genre superstar. Traveling came next. From Tennessee to Texas, he played concerts in 1985 that drew over 5,000 people. Tragically, the music stopped when they were traveling to a big performance. His band's instruments, valued at over $20,000, were destroyed in an accident involving an equipment truck. The rest of the band freaked out, but Schneider kept his cool. He borrowed whatever he could get his hands on and contacted acquaintances all throughout the industry. A country music artist let him use his beloved Fender Telecaster. Even though he was using borrowed equipment, Schneider put up a spectacular performance that night. Later on, listeners claimed they could sense the band's resolve in every chord. A Memory Like You, his 1986 release, was his next major move. When it first came out, it topped the country charts. Inviting Johnny Cash to perform beside him was a highlight of his special event in Nashville. They glided around the stage together as Cash played his distinctive guitar. As a token of their appreciation, they exchanged personalized dusters after the performance. One featured the General Lee symbol, while the other had embroidered eagles. Collectors still seek out the limited vinyl release of the concert that was captured. His workload was at its busiest by 1987. He made about $1 million that year from 50 gigs and filming 30 episodes of Dukes of Hazzard. He finally succumbed to the pressure. His voice entirely died after 2 concerts in Nashville and Atlanta. The doctors have prescribed a 2-month hiatus. During that period, he went to Colorado to study with a renowned yodeling instructor, who taught him the ropes and helped him regain his voice. On his comeback, he sung with greater assurance and control, and the crowd could feel it. The turning point in television history arrived at the same moment. Schneider and What left the set in February 1982, immediately following the 13th episode of Season 4. Despite selling 1 million toys, neither actor was getting a cut of the profits from the General Lee toy. Schneider requested a fair deal from the producers during a tense 2-hour meeting. Catherine Bach remained on the broadcast while subtly offering her support. In response, Warner Brothers cast 2 new cousins, Coy and Vance, to play their roles. The audience was enraged. Within weeks, the show's ratings plummeted by nearly 20% as critics panned the new characters, calling them generic knockoffs. Commercials were admonished, and CBS frowned. Schneider and What were given a 40% salary increase and a 5% royalty share by the network. While waiting for the agreement to be finalized, Schneider kept an eye on everything from Atlanta. He was financially depleted by the conflict. His gold Dukes of Hazzard watch was pawned for $5,000 during the 3-month impasse so he could pay his bills. He received $50,000 as his initial payment upon completion of the royalty arrangement. Returning immediately to the pawn store, he obtained the watch. It became a symbol of his unwavering will to defend his earned rights. The studio gave Schneider creative control over a portion of the screenplay when he and What returned for the October 1982 premiere of Season 5. A monologue from Bo Duke about standing up for what you believe in was exactly what he requested. The walkout served as the direct inspiration for it. The subtle message was well received by the fans. For actors seeking equitable contracts on other series, it was a watershed moment. Cheers was an early adopter of the strategy. As soon as the Dukes of Hazzard concluded in February 1985, John Schneider felt as if the world had turned on its head. Bo Duke, an Orange Charger superstar one day, and now he stands silently by the phone, waiting for the call to come. 2 years later, in 1987, he landed his big break playing Ree in the TV movie Christmas Comes to Willow Creek. The scene lacked the cozy atmosphere of Hazzard County. He found himself in Dawson City, Yukon, enveloped in a blanket of white snow, with air as cold as 20 degrees below zero. He shed 15 pounds while filming by adhering to a stringent music diet designed to make him look exhausted. The film premiered on December 20, 1987, and he later claimed that the chilly weather inspired him to fully immerse himself in the role. Back in 1989, he was still trying to break free of Bo Duke's shadow. He had the role of a detective in the short-lived miniseries Rawhide Trail, which disappeared from television screens after only 2 episodes. It was a sobering reminder that he was trapped in an unbreakable stereotype of Southern charm. Over the course of the following few years, he tried out for over 50 pilot roles, including MacGyver, but Richard Dean Anderson ultimately got the part. In retrospect, he reflected on how, despite his best efforts, each rejection felt like he was confined to an unchanging wardrobe. Then an unexpected turn of events occurred. Rather than sit around and let Hollywood decide his destiny in 1990, John Schneider used his funds to build John Schneider Studios. Because banks were afraid to lend him money due to his hillbilly image, he ended up investing $100,000 of his own. In Louisiana, he constructed a soundstage and post-production studios on his own land. That was daring. It was precarious. A man was reinventing his career on wide southern countryside, away from Hollywood. His soul found its way back to music in 1992. During a very trying time in his life, he recorded Come Morning in a modest home studio. At this time, his marriage to Ellie Castle was starting to crumble, and the songs reflected that. The album's quiet triumph came when it peaked at number 15 on the Billboard country charts. Evidence that his ability to speak up for those in need persisted even in the midst of chaos. In 1995, he took charge of the camera for an episode of the reboot of Highway to Heaven. The presence of familiar faces was important to him, so he rehired members of his former Duke's crew for the task. However, he had to shell out $20,000 of his own money to save the show due to stunt crashes that ruined the budget. It ended up airing, but he learned the hard way that directing occasionally required sacrificing budgetary constraints in pursuit of narrative. When he entered the Smallville audition room in 2001, everything changed. In Jonathan Kent's casting call, over 100 actors were considered. Everyone in the room fell silent as Schneider started giving a lecture about fatherhood on the spot at the farm. Without delay, he was cast by the producers. He became one of the show's emotional pillars despite the frequent cast changes because to his decision, which he carried through 217 episodes throughout 10 seasons. He obtained the role, which would go on to become pivotal in his life, by following his gut at that one decisive moment. In the third season's legacy, he subtly inserted a Superman anecdote based on actual interviews with Jerry Siegel's family. He went on to direct 4 episodes of the show. Although it was a minor revision, readers could tell that it added depth to the plot. It was as if Schneider had retrieved Superman's origin story and delicately incorporated it into contemporary television. On the other hand, problems began in 2005. In Season 5, the producers intended to eliminate Jonathan Kent. The idea was opposed by Schneider. His behavior was marked by argumentation, resistance, and the danger of desertion. On the condition that the grisly scene be captured in an actual Kansas cornfield, he eventually consented to remain. Among the most moving parts of the whole series was the tribute episode. Enthusiasts understood its significance. The effort he put into it was palpable. He departed from his usual heroic roles in 2006 to play a villain on CSI Miami, where he played a corrupt sheriff. Even though he only appeared in 2 episodes, his performance was so good that he was nominated for an Emmy for Best Guest Actor in a Drama Series. Audiences who believed they were familiar with him were taken aback. He went from being the endearing dupe to the good-hearted father all of a sudden. And he might be a threat as well. Thanks to years of consistent paychecks and residual checks, his net worth was about $4 million when Smallville concluded in 2011. Fans were taken aback, though, when he revealed that he had sold an autographed General Lee hood for $25,000 to support his ranch in Louisiana. People were taken aback by the idea of selling such a beloved item. It demonstrated his readiness to use his history for the benefit of his future and his preference for living in the present over collecting sentimental items. Then a storm hit, surpassing any fan dispute that had come before. Due to the Confederate flag on the General Lee, TV land banned Dukes of Hazzard repeats in July 2015, following the Charleston church shooting. Sales of almost 300 episodes and innumerable model vehicles were halted when Warner Brothers ceased licensing all items associated with the flag. An enraged Schneider immediately took to Twitter. He emphasized that the performance stood for joy, family, and the South's soul and said that by doing so, they were erasing history. His statements gained widespread attention. The same month that South Carolina removed the Confederate flag from its Capitol grounds, it became a national topic. All at once, pop culture, politics, and suffering came crashing down. Schneider also lost out on royalties due to the licensing expiration, so he started a petition to get his money back. Signing up exceeded 50,000 fans. In an interview with Fox, he clarified that the car had never been a racist symbol and that viewers had enjoyed the program for years without seeing the connection. For him, it became an emotionally and financially charged personal matter. Protests following the murder of George Floyd in June 2020 brought the topic back into the spotlight. The show was considered for removal from Amazon's streaming service. In interviews, Schneider retaliated by claiming that he had never received a single complaint from a black fan and that the removal of the show would only serve to further divide the audience. The discussion heated up after NASCAR banned Confederate flags from future races. While the nation debated the proper meaning of symbols, the entire 7-season series was in jeopardy. Tropical storm Ida devastated Louisiana in August of the next year, 2021. The collapse of one of Schneider's barns ruined a $200,000 personal General Lee. With the flag still visible on top, he shared a Facebook photo of the smashed orange Charger. Even in the face of defeat, he managed a smile and a remark like, "She'll jump again." The storm in Studio 2 had already devastated his home. Both his life and his legacy took a damage from the blow. He finally started talking frankly about his feelings over the General Lee conflict in 2025. It was not about supporting the Confederacy, he claimed, it was about free speech. Censoring historical symbols was a threat, he said, and the dispute constituted a war on American history. He mentioned the extensive group of people that appreciated the show, regardless of their background. It became a personal stance, something he felt compelled to defend regardless of sentimentality or financial considerations. Despite the chaos all around him, Schneider persisted in constructing. He marked his 58th birthday on April 8, 2018, with a jumpsuit reminiscent of his Duke days. A real-life General Lee was launched about 30 feet into the air as he sent him soaring over a 75-foot ramp at his Louisiana studio, to the astonishment of the onlookers. It was part of Bose's spectacular event, which drew hundreds of people for a fan gathering. Everyone remembered why they fell for Bo Duke at first sight because it was an unforgettable moment. More than 500 emotionally charged sequences were given by him over his tenure on The Have-Nots and the Haves, which lasted from 2013 to 2021. Described by Tyler Perry as raw intensity and the ability to switch from calm to explosive in a single breath, he was highly regarded. Whenever Jim Cryer had a tantrum or confrontation, fans went wild on the internet. Schneider proved he could command a scene without resorting to yelling by holding his own in a cast filled with powerful performers. After divorcing Alva Castle in 2014 after 21 years of marriage, his personal life started to fall apart. The consequences on his finances drove him to the brink of insolvency. Community service and public dissatisfaction resulted from alimony court disputes. However, he didn't vanish, he created a YouTube channel. Personal stories, studio updates, and cover versions of songs were among his posts. The channel gained 16,000 subscribers in a matter of days. It became his linchpin, evidence that you can rebuild from the ashes of life's destruction.